one of the most amazing things about superannuation is that it is this really tax-friendly investment vehicle. For every dollar that you put in of your after-tax contributions, you could get an extra 50 cents back.
Even a small amount going in at a regular basis can make such a big difference in the long term, and the impact that can make is enormous, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Super Insider, where we talk all things super and retirement. My name is Ruth, I'll be your host today, and I'm delighted to be joined by Megan. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you, so excited to be here.
Now, Megan and I are both part of the education team here at Australian Retirement Trust, and today we're going to educate you on 5 easy steps to grow your superannuation. But before we do, it is important to remember that the information we'll share today is general in nature. We haven't factored in your personal or your financial circumstances, so we do encourage you to bear that in mind as we work through the content, and also to seek further guidance and advice where appropriate. Now, the words easy and super, Megan, don't often come hand in hand.
They really don't, but hey, that's why we have a job, right? Our job is to make it easy.
And look, it doesn't always have to be so complicated. During today's episode, we'll break it down into 5 simple steps for people. So let's start with step number 1 in the obvious spot. What is the first thing you would recommend people do?
The first thing is just remember it is your money. So getting involved and engaged and connect with your super. So make sure that you've got your member online access with your fund, that you've got the app access, that you know how to log in and check things, because really that is the home of your money. We're always logging in and checking our bank balances and our transactions and making sure we haven't been double charged. Super is no different.
This is it, and I often say to people when we're in seminars or during live webinars, would you know if your pay was short by $10 or $20? We'd all be very quick to recognise we didn't get paid. So you need to be aware of what you're entitled to and when that contribution is being made into your account, and keeping an eye on it.
Absolutely. And don't necessarily check your balance every single day. You of course can, but just make sure that you are reviewing things periodically. And then the other thing is just make sure you're checking your fund's website and read any emails that they send you. Open those member benefit statement that we send you, because you don't know what you don't know, and our job is to inform you of things that can benefit you and your super.
It's really difficult to learn about something, to engage with something and take control of something if you are not connected with it. So step number 1 is to get connected with your account. So once you are connected, you're registered for online access, or you've downloaded the mobile app, what would be the next thing we'd suggest people consider doing?
So make sure that you've got all your super in the one fund, or at least you know where all of your super is. Now, I don't know about you, but in my earlier days, when I was much younger, I, like a lot of people, had multiple jobs, and I collected multiple super funds. Almost with every job I started, I just got a new super fund because I didn't know and I didn't care. And so when I started working in superannuation about 15 years ago, I went through and I consolidated my super. I got it all under the one roof. So just making sure that you know where your super is and that it's in the appropriate place. It's working hard for you for your future.
I often say to people as well, if you're not able to articulate a strategic reason why you have more than one super account, there's a high chance you don't need more than one superannuation account. Having 2 superannuation accounts is not a crime if you've got a reason for that. What are the reasons, or what are the issues, I guess, with having more than one account? What are the risks that we need to alert people to?
Well, generally, if you've got more than one account, you are paying more than one lot of fees, and potentially insurance premiums as well. So having your super under one roof can be beneficial from that fee, from that cost perspective. But as you said, there can be some perfectly valid reasons for having more than one super fund. And as long as you're aware and you understand that, but also check in, again, it goes back to connecting and engaging with your super. Make sure that the reasons that were valid, a few years ago, are still valid today.
That's right, yeah. The fund that you're with today might not be the fund that was appropriate for you or will be appropriate for you in 10 or 20 years' time. So that's one of the really strong reasons why you would stay connected with your fund and understanding the features and the benefits of being with that particular provider. So we've connected with our account, we're online, we're looking at it regularly, we know what's coming in and out of the account, we've brought all our superannuation together. So that's kind of like the admin, if you like. We've ticked off our
all
administration,
the boring things, right?
all the boring things. So we've done our administration tasks in that regard. The next thing then would be to look a little bit closer at your actual account, and we'll call this maybe the strategy steps, if you like. So what would be the first thing that someone might look at once they've tidied up their accounts and they're ready to maybe start thinking of real strategic ways to grow their account?
Well, obviously, a way to grow your super is to add more money. So from a contribution perspective, you've got your employer contributions that are going in, which are mandatory, and a minimum of 12% of your salary, which is a great start. But if you can and you want to make extra contributions to super, one of the most amazing things about superannuation is that it is this really tax-friendly investment vehicle. And so you can pay a lower rate of tax within superannuation, both from a contributions perspective, but also from an investment perspective. And if we're paying less tax, we can hopefully add more and get more and grow more to enjoy in retirement. So in terms of adding money, our own money into super, there are a few different ways that you can do it, and it really depends on your circumstances, what is most appropriate.
I agree, and I think sometimes it is important to highlight when we talk about contributions to people that it's not the only step. We recognise that it's an expensive time. There is a thing called the cost of living crisis. It seems to be going on for quite some time. So finding those extra dollars can be tricky. We understand that. But even a small amount going in at a regular basis can make such a big difference in the long term. We're not talking here about big chunky contributions into your account. We are actually talking about very small and regular contributions, and the impact that can make is enormous, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, small regular amounts, but done for a consistent period over time, they really do add up. And so there are calculators, for example, on the ART website, we've got our contributions calculators, and they can really show you the impact that these changes can have. Because at the end of the day, if you're putting money into super today, that is money that you don't have to spend today, but it is an investment for your future. And trust me, your future self will absolutely thank you in retirement.
This is it. Now, when we talk about contributions as well, it's probably one of the more complex parts of superannuation because there are different ways.
Yes.
If you're currently working under the PAYG system, for example, and you're getting a contribution from your employer, very often there is a method called salary sacrifice where you're able to take advantage of that concessional tax. But it's not the only way. There are other incentives to get money into superannuation, which don't involve your employer or concessional tax, and that's the after-tax method, isn't it?
Yes, or non-concessional. And ultimately what this means, it's money that has already been taxed at your applicable tax rate. So it's money in your bank account, and you're choosing to put it into superannuation. Because you've already been taxed at your normal rate of tax, there's no further tax when it enters the super environment. Now, non-concessional or after-tax contributions can be beneficial for people on a sort of lower to middle income earning rate because it might qualify them for a scheme called the co-contribution, which is something that the federal government offers. It's really designed to encourage Australians to put their own money into super. And so if your income is below a certain threshold, and that threshold changes every financial year, so check our website to see what the current limits are. For every dollar that you put in of your after-tax contributions, you could get an extra 50 cents back. So, a really great return on your investment. And so this is designed to encourage, if you put in some of your own money, hey, the federal government's also going to tip in more, and that's going to help grow your super at a faster rate and have more in retirement. So co-contribution is a fantastic scheme.
It is a fantastic scheme, and my words to people would be, don't be underwhelmed by it. We are talking here about getting $1,000 over a financial year of your money into your account.
$20 a week. It's not much.
And you could be rewarded with an additional $500 from the government. I actually used that scheme myself for 8 years when I was having kids. I just wanted to keep the lights on with my own superannuation whilst I was in and out of the workforce, and I was working very little while my girls were very young. And back then, it felt like maybe an irrelevant step. I thought, is this really going to make much of an impact? I was in my 30s. So I'm starting to really see the benefit of that now. I'm well into my 40s, I'll ashamedly admit, but I am really starting to reap the rewards of those small regular contributions now. So contributing, if you can, the way you can, will be a brilliant step towards growing your super. But it's not the only one. So often then we'll move on and we'll talk to people about, well, what happens to the money once it actually does get contributed into super, and is there any control a member has over how the fund invests it?
Absolutely. Everyone has a choice. So, depending on who your super's with, and certainly at ART, we've got 16 different investment options that our members can choose from. So at ART, there's a sort of a life cycle style of default investment option where essentially our management team, our investment managers are making those decisions for you, and depending on where you are in your superannuation journey, so your age and how much super you do or don't have, if you're earlier in your career, for example, you've got, quite a while until you retire, less super. So they will naturally expose you to more growth orientated assets under the hood. So we're talking shares, property, infrastructure, that type of thing. Whereas when you start to get a little bit closer to retirement, when you start to build up your superannuation because you've been contributing for quite some time, there'll be a sort of gradual de-risking. So you're more conservatively invested the closer you are to retirement. Now that's the default option. So that's just one single investment option, and you can always choose and change things as you see fit.
I think it's important as well when you're looking at your investment mix in super to understand that yes, you have control over it, but one of the most important factors to think about is your age, because the time you have to invest that money will determine how much risk you might be able to take. And generally we would suggest, and everybody's different, but generally we suggest the younger you are, the more likely to take extra risk you're going to be, because you've got many, many years to recover the volatility that you might experience. But generally those higher risk, higher growth orientated investment options over the longer term do pay off. So for the risk that you take as a younger person, the reward tends to be a bigger premium or a better return in the long term. Now, in the short term, that might come with a bit of a bumpy ride.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why, don't necessarily check your balance every single day, because your balance will naturally ebb and flow along with investment returns. But, volatility isn't necessarily a dirty word. It's just something that you need to consider, particularly though if you are earlier in your superannuation journey. Volatility can sometimes present some opportunities because every time money gets added to super through your employer contributions, through personal voluntary contributions, it is purchasing super or investments at that unit price based on what's happening in the market at that given point of time. So, you sometimes can benefit and get a little bit more for your money. It's exactly like shares. You'd love to buy low, sell high, and so over time it can work to your advantage. But at the same token, I think being too conservative can sometimes also be,
a risk in its own right.
In itself, exactly, because you've really got to come back to what's the purpose of super. The purpose of super is to provide you with ongoing income for the duration of your retirement. So we build it, we contribute to it for many, many decades throughout our working life, but hopefully our retired life is also going to last for a few decades as well. So we need to make sure that we've got the right mix of the relevant investment options to deliver what the goal and the purpose of superannuation is.
And if that's confronting for our listeners trying to decide which investment option I should go into, remember we do a lot of work here at the fund, as many funds will do, to determine the default option. And generally a default option tends to be somewhat relevant and appropriate for the vast majority. So we work really hard to make sure that the default option will actually do what we want it to do for every member, notwithstanding that some people will have very different objectives that sit outside of what that can do. So you do have choice, and it is really important to understand that you have the ability to exercise that really easy. If you're connected online, you can make your own investment switches, pick your own cocktail of investment options until you come up with a profile that suits you.
Absolutely.
And if you're not comfortable with that, we've got you covered through the default position if needed.
One of the other advantages is that being with a fund like ART, we are such a large fund. We're one of the largest in Australia, but we're actually one of the largest pension funds in the world. And that's great because it gives us these global investment opportunities on all types of assets all over the world, which are really part and parcel of delivering, strong, solid, consistent investment returns for the long term, because that is what super is all about.
And that's where the bulk of your balance will come from when you actually get to retirement and you open up your statement and you see that lovely figure. Hopefully it's a lovely figure at retirement. A lot of that will have been from investment returns, which is why it's such an important step. Also, it's worth reminding everybody that there is lots of information on the website to read through our investment options as well as our returns if people want to look at that. So we've talked about the administration of your account, the strategy generally, getting money in if and how you can, what happens to the money once it's in there. But we've also got to be mindful of what's coming out of the account and making sure that everything is set up. And one of the areas, I think, Megan, is the insurance. Whilst a really important component of our account, it is worthwhile reminding everyone that it's also often a debit because it's a cost, isn't it? And
Correct.
To be aware of that.
We pay insurance premiums for no matter what type of insurance we hold, whether or not it's inside or outside of super, there is a cost involved. And when we talk insurance through super, we're really talking about insurance that's designed to protect you and your family in case life happens and you can't work, earn an income, and go through that superannuation journey like normal. So we're talking death and total and permanent disability insurance and possibly income protection. So whilst typically super funds, there is usually a minimum amount of automatic or default insurance that has to be activated at certain triggers in your life, it is, and the benefit of holding it through super is that it's automatic. From a cash flow perspective, that cost is being covered by your super balance, as opposed to it being yet another insurance bill that you've got to pay with your after-tax dollars. But, and this is the point that you raised, there is a cost.
Yep.
And the cost is effectively ultimately coming from future you, from your end retirement balance. So insurance is something that you need to be mindful of. Insurance is something, the insurance that's held through super is not ever static or set and forget. Your insurance needs will possibly change throughout your working life based on income, debt levels. Do you have young children? Are you closer to retirement? You've got a big, a healthy super balance already. All of these factors need to be considered. But at the end of the day, insurance through super can be important. It can be a literal lifeline for people that do need it. And it's about making sure that you and your family have the right level of cover at the right cost for you at that stage of your life. Yep. So there are lots of tools and resources that you can access to check these things, and then making amendments to your insurance is something that you can easily do through your online access.
It is such an important component to your account. It's like all insurances, and there's so many different types, but insurance is the one thing I think we pay for in life that we hope we never have to use.
Exactly. But when we need to use it, you're glad that you've got it. But I mean, I know with myself, every time I get my car renewal, my home insurance renewal, my health insurance, especially right now with cost of living challenges, and I'm a single mum, so I absolutely understand that. I shop around. I make sure that the insurance that I have is the right level of cover that I need, but at the right cost. Yep. And if there is something that is more appropriate, then, I might look at switching. So insurance through super is really no different.
Yeah, and just being aware of the impact the cost has, which is why it's so important to make sure it's appropriate.
Absolutely.
And I guess also thinking about counteractions to the money that's leaving your account to pay for insurance.
You could always make extra contributions to cover the insurance, particularly if potentially you've identified that maybe you need more insurance and so you're going to apply for extra cover. Well, that's going to come at an additional cost. So you might make those contributions into super to cover the cost of those premiums.
That's it.
Because the alternative is if you held that outside of super, you would have to pay for those anyway. So it's really not much difference.
Fabulous. Now, I don't know if we made them easy steps, Megan, but we certainly covered 5 steps, and I'll very quickly recap them for our audience. Number 1 is to connect with your account and engage regularly through our wonderful digital offerings that are available to you. The second one is to combine your accounts if that makes sense for you. If you don't know why you have a second one, maybe you don't need a second one. Think about contributing some money in there if you can and when you can. How is that money invested once it's in the account? And lastly, being mindful of what's coming out of the account. Megan, hopefully we've summarised that easily for our audience today. And I think it's really important to remind everyone that underpinning all of those steps, it's really important that you're aware and that you've got access to good guidance, education, and of course, advice.
Absolutely. And so, there's a lot of ways that you can access that. There's a lot of digital tools and education on our website, and that may be enough for you. You might already have a bit of a good understanding of how you can tweak things and really get your super sorted for you. But if you need further assistance and guidance, then we do have financial advice that is available as part of your membership for all members of ART. And that can look at your super account within ART, but we can also partner and work with external financial advisors if you've already got that relationship elsewhere. So really there are experts available to help you grow your super, to prepare and plan for retirement so that your best years are ahead of you.
That's right, Megan. So you don't have to be a super expert, but you just need to make sure that you're reaching out to those who are to get the right steps and guidance. Well, that's it for today. Hopefully they take us back for another session, Megan. It was such a pleasure to have you. I enjoyed that. And
so much fun. Yeah. I know that a lot of people don't think super is fun, but it is fun.
We do. We might be biased.
It's a little bit. But, at the end of the day, it's your money. You're working hard to earn an income, to contribute to super, to grow that. And so really, when you get to retire and enjoy the fruits of your labour, that is a reward for all of your hard work. So
super is money.
Remember
and money
us
is fun.
when you're relaxing on a beach somewhere.
Yes, this is it. Your super is your money, and your money can mean a lot of fun and financial freedom. Thank you, Megan, and hopefully we'll see you all in another episode soon.